It's wonderful to have you online and on board. I've followed some of your presentations and your work here in South Africa, and we're just so happy to use this platform to share globally as well. So let's see, we're going to wait a bit for all our attendees to join as the links, etc., become available. Let's see where everyone is from. Please put in the comments for us on the first person, Alan from the UK. Welcome, Alan. Great to have you on board. Who else? Oh, Harare, Zimbabwe. Cheryl from Cape Town. So, wow. Badikazi, also locally from South Africa, Eswatini, Johannesburg, Dumelang, Vela from Botswana, Charmaine from Port Elizabeth in South Africa, Pretoria, Namibia, Harare again, Quibisbury from UK, Namibia, Sunny, Pretoria, Patrice. I'm also from Pretoria. Great to see you.
Well, from Istanbul.
Professors, colleagues from Istanbul, wonderful. From Pretoria, Johannesburg. We're going to give it another 2 minutes or so as people come along online. That's really Malaysia, Buenos Dias, is David Roche, Limpopo in South Africa, Johannesburg, Kuala Lumpur again from Malaysia. Okay, and it's growing. Okay. So I think I'm going to jump right in and get our webinar going. As people, Ontario, Canada, as people join us and tell us where they are from, it's wonderful to have people from all over joining. I'm particularly excited about this webinar, and thank you to our presenters. My name is Lindy Grebe, and I'm from the Good Governance Research Forum, and we are excited to share today our research on the good governance associated through continuous assurance. So without any further ado, I'm going to hand over to our panel, who are going to introduce themselves and enlighten you today. Thank you very much. Over to you guys.
So, warm welcome. And as today's topic, good governance through continuous assurance, we are here as a CAPIA project members. And also, I am Sezer Bozkuş Kahyaoğlu as a GGA steering committee member in the research forum as Lindy. It's our pleasure to welcome you. And we are ready to start our program. Not to spend any minute, it's quite important, and we are excited with our distinguished guests waiting for us. After this, as much as short opening speech, we will start with the digital transformation for the good governance. I will be giving some brief information, and CAPIA project, Prof. Lawrence, and then floors will be Ilse Morgans to give information about the good governance, how we can do that through continuous assurance, which is a really timely topic nowadays. So when we talk about digital transformation for good governance, actually it's not a new topic, but when we think about the performance and our success level, how successful are we should be taught by all colleagues all over the world. And we also know that we have very good definitions about governance for the countries, and which means by the World Bank's definition, rules, enforcement mechanisms, and the organizations which is specifically dealing about the power issues, and which the powers exercise in the management of a country's both economic and social resources for development in every sense. So when we look at the indicators, because if we are looking for a power with a performance success criteria, we need to measure them. And it's a long story. We have world governance indicators, many other indexes, and ready for producing us good metrics for how to measure our level of success considering economic and social resources all over the world. And then it comes to the governance dimensions, because when you measure the metrics, it's all about different dimensions coming to our agenda to achieve economic performance. Either you are talking about public sector, private sector, the companies, is a global issue actually. So good governance is there for more efficient utilization of resources, which we aim to have better access to capital, better and higher quality employment opportunities, which is quite competitive nowadays, and a better chance of developing a sustained, way efficient domestic or either regional capital markets. So it's a global issue, and it's quite important for the effectiveness of public institutions because they are the leading organizations with the huge size and economy scale they bring into screen. So for better governed companies are less likely to bribe regulators or judges. This is also a reality. So when we look at the global map, you see there are many colleagues attending this webinar can see that governance scores are not that good. And considering the economic development and the performance, the trade and everything, so what's going on in the world? Why we cannot improve this governance indicators, the metrics? What is the reason behind this? So we are expecting good explanations from Prof. Lawrence and Prof. Ilsa to give us nice comments about this. But before moving to that, I would like to show some facts about the pandemic period. Digitalization is everywhere. We are experiencing it. Either we like or dislike, directly or indirectly, we are all involved in this situation. Digitalization has taken place, but digital transformation has not yet fully realized. This is something to do about the cultural shift as well. It's not only digital equipments and things we are using, but it's also our relations, human to human, and also human to machine. As you remember, we had previously discussed about the robotic impacts on the good governance and the colleagues around with, robots everywhere. So this means there are breaks in the value chain because we cannot fully ensure effectiveness. Considering the country's positions, especially advanced economies are, yes, in good position, but considering our map again, you see there are many other countries. Let's say the majority are in a position to improve their position. So including these emerging markets and developing economies and low-income countries, we need to do something for their economic welfare and to improve the good governance implementations. But how? It can be only done via continuous assurance. And we start with either for the private or the public sector, with a small company or a huge conglomerate, let's say. We always start with a business model to make it just systematic, to start from the digital readiness about in connection to the digital culture, with the responsible leadership, digital technology, innovation, and then we end up with good governance implementation through continuous assurance. So we will be talking about how to achieve these nice steps with a nice framework. Ilse will be explaining. And before that, thank you very much for attending our session. And it's my honor to introduce Prof. Lawrence, with full of roles, academic and professional roles. You can say Professor of Financial Governance, College of Accounting Science at UNISA, and Commissioner of South Africa's Financial and Fiscal Commission, quite challenging role. Chairperson of Education and Professional Development Committee of South African Institute of Government Auditors. If they are here, all government auditors are welcome as our colleagues, because we are really working for them to serve for better good governance issues. And Prof. Lawrence is also editor of accredited research journals, the Southern African Journal of Accountability and Auditing Research. As you see, all of them are related to our topic today. And it's my pleasure to say that he's also the project leader of Engage Scholarship Project, which we call Continuous Auditing in Public Sector Internal Auditing, CAPIA, we are proud of, which today's session is part of. So, Prof. Lawrence, thank you, and floor is yours.
Prof. Caesar, thank you very much for that introduction. Let me just get my presentation on. It's going to be from beginning. There we are. Is it okay for everyone?
Yes, fine.
There we go. Colleagues, yes, thank you for this opportunity, and Prof. Caesar for your generous introduction, and also setting the scene for this session this morning in South Africa. My presentation will be very brief. I'm going to introduce, what our project is about, how it was established, how it came about, and also the team that's participating in this project. So let me go straight to the team. And as you can see there, quite a diverse team that we managed to put together. Myself then from the University of South Africa. Then we have Professor Cameron Modisani, who's currently the acting Deputy Executive Dean of the College of Accounting Sciences at the University of South Africa. Prof. Caesar Bozkash Kaheholo from the Kyrgyz-Turkish Manas University, but of course you know her. A very, very valuable member to this team with all her experience and technical knowledge. Dr. Louis Schmidt from TUT, Tshwane University of Technology in South Africa. Dr. Leandi Steenkamp, she's the head of accounting and auditing there at the Central University of Technology in the Free State Province of South Africa. Mrs. Ilse Morgan, Department of Auditing from UNISA. And Ms. Takani Rampai, she's from the University of Pretoria, Department of Auditing. And Ms. Babalwa Teki from UNISA, the Department of Financial Accounting. So they are the team, and this is what we are doing, working towards. Let me first give you a bit of a background on how this all started. So in 2019, I met Mr. Bader Tupal and Prof. Caesar at a conference in Paris. At the time, Mr. Bader Tupal was the chairperson of the Turkey Association for Public Sector Internal Auditors. And Prof. Caesar was affiliated there with the Bakırçay University in Izmir, Turkey. And today, Mr. Bader is working for the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations. So very valuable people to have in one's network. And they developed for the Ministry of Agriculture in Turkey a continuous software system together with a software application that they showcased at this conference. And I need to mention that a person that had a huge contribution in the development of the system is Dr. Hakan Beyoğlu, if I pronounce it correctly, please. And he's also from the Ministry of Agriculture in Turkey. So we discussed there, and we wanted to share the lessons that Turkey have learned in the development of their system and the implementation and their challenges. We wanted to bring that to South Africa to see whether it can contribute to our situation here, and we can probably, possibly adopt some of these practices. And we organized the visit for April 2020, and everything was paid for, and they were 1 foot on the plane when a global lockdown struck due to COVID-19, so we had to cancel everything. Decided then we're not going to, halt anything. So we had 2 very successful international webinars in 21 and 2022, but also carried then on with PhD proposals registered at the University of South Africa by Ilse Morgan and Takani Rompai, with Ilse Morgan's title being a conceptual framework to improve accountability and transparency. And there we are. In the South African public sector through continuous assurance, and that's what her session today is going to be about. Takani's title being an adoption strategy for continuous auditing by South African public sector internal audit function. On the 1st of January 2022, we then managed to register this CAPIA project as a registered engaged scholarship project at UNISA, which formalizes the project, and it now binds us to reporting annually on our activities and put out plans ahead. So it formalizes the structure a bit, which then also assists us in keeping us on our toes and having certain goals in mind. And it also managed us to appoint Prof. Caesar as an academic associate from the 1st of October 2022 to the Financial Governance as a Professor Extraordinarius at the College of Accountancy, University of South Africa. Within the same year, we had other activities going as well. We had, under the leadership of Dr. Louis Schmidt, Dr. Leandi was part of that, as well as Prof. Caesar, and they conducted a generalized audit software maturity survey for the Canadian federal government. These results were, at the beginning of the month, shared with the Canadian federal government. I know Dr. Louis has another session on the 1st of May, where he then will also present them to their Comptroller General. And we also collected data on the generalized audit software maturity survey from the Turkey public sector, and that data is currently being analyzed. So we're quite busy with those activities then also. And what we did in addition was to prepare a book proposal. It was accepted by CRC Press, that is part of the Taylor and Francis Group, and it's on continuous auditing with artificial intelligence in the public sector. That's the title of the book. And what Prof. Caesar has earlier referred to when she spoke to Caroline is that we are thinking of approaching the GGA as a platform for the latter part of the year, once our chapters start to take form, to try and have sessions like what we are having now on specific areas that we are covering in this book. So going over to the purpose then, for us, it's to contribute to a value-adding public service internal audit function through the early detections of risk. In South Africa, it is paramount that we do get the effective use of public resources. We badly need it, and we need to put all our effort in to contribute to achieve that. And we want to improve internal audit mechanisms based on new technological developments to strengthen assurance services. And that would be to achieve transparent, accountable, and strategic public sector goals to, in the end, ensure a sustainability then in the public sector. So please, colleagues, if you have any contribution that you think you can make, approach us. If you think that you have an idea of an activity that we can pursue, there's my email address and that of Prof. Caesar. We will certainly consider any proposals that come our way. And if in future there's, in any case, if there's any possibility of cooperation or bringing you into what we are doing, certainly, we can consider and expand on the activities that we are doing also outside the borders of South Africa. And Prof. Caesar, I thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be part of the great team, and we are ready to contribute literature. Please feel free to email and so that we can start collaborations. So it's my pleasure to introduce Ilse Morgan. Ilse is a certified internal auditor and at the same time lecturing at the University of South Africa, UNISA, in the Department of Auditing. She also holds a master's degree in auditing, mostly focusing on the role of internal auditing in the professional development of audit committees. And now, currently, she's having the PhD process. She's a PhD candidate in financial governance, and her PhD focus on improving, as our topic is related to that, accountability and transparency in the South African public sector through continuous assurance. So there are many other things I can tell about Ilse, but it's time to just focus on our topic to give you some more minutes. Floor is yours, Ilse. Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Prof. Caesar, and to the Good Governance Academy for this opportunity, and welcome to all the attendees. I will share my screen with you. Please let me know if you can see that.
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Thank you. Possibly the biggest challenge in our current day business environment worldwide are accountability and transparency and good governance. And even our judicial and regulatory systems are often failing to curb corruption. So we must look at other possibilities and opportunities to address this issue. So what I will share with you today is the reasons for the lack of good governance in most organizations. Then I will look at the technology and the innovations that are available to assurance providers. And I will consider continuous auditing, continuous monitoring, and eventual continuous assurance in addressing this lack of good governance. And then I will discuss achieving accountability and transparency and ultimately good governance. So the lack of good governance, most of the irregularities and the mismanagement and corruption in organizations are mainly due to fragmented systems, people working in silos, departments working in silos, inadequate oversight and monitoring from the oversight bodies, limited transparency, and then resulting in no accountability. As we know, management and the board, as the oversight bodies, need to account for the operations, their decisions, and the status and the position of the organization. So the management reporting also needs to be accurate, complete, timely, which is a problem, and valid in all respects. Continuous monitoring and auditing software can therefore be used as mechanisms to address these objectives and to enhance accountability and transparency. But therefore, we need real-time data and continuous monitoring thereof and to assist management in being more proactive and to avoid any duplications and inefficiencies that we have. As we know, data is the new gold, or the new oil, adding value through interrogation algorithms and predictive analytics, and technology is creating new possibilities to simplify these processes and to enable instant feedback, and therefore to ultimately improve systems within an organization. Now, digitalization and artificial intelligence are creating a new governance model for organizations, an opportunity for that. And that model can be more agile and it can be more responsive by being real-time and data-driven. What is then often asked is, where were the auditors? And we are wondering what would be the role and the future of auditors in this new model if it's data-driven and digitized. But the World Economic Forum reported already in 2020, ranking accounting and auditing as number 4 on the list of jobs with a decreasing demand. So how can we as assurance providers then add value and still be relevant and contribute to good governance? Will we still exist? So the auditors or the assurance providers should implement effective assurance mechanisms. We should add value. The real-time data is available and can be accessed through the technologies and the tools that are already available. We must just make use of it. So my proposed framework for continuous assurance tools is based on the mechanisms within a human body. And by using a holistic approach to, for example, treat a disease, the diseases within organizations. And the brain resembles the decision makers and the executive management. And throughout my presentation, please keep in mind the workings of a human body and how the nervous systems and the veins and the organs are all connected. And they all need to continuously function together to maintain your good health. And our bodies have lines of defense and even early warning mechanisms that if organs need attention. So if our body can function like that, let's use it in our organizations. Now, AI, blockchain, machine learning, chat, GPT, bots, robotics, and all these other tools and technologies will be explored in this framework to improve transparency and accountability through, for example, the use of algorithms and smart contracts. The auditing or assurance functions will be supported by advanced data analytics, algorithms, and the deployment of intelligent agents, for example, ChatGPT. It has the potential to audit 100% of a population and reduce any subjectivity. And it's characterized by instant detection of adverse events by being risk intelligent using AI and machine learning. So you as the assurance provider can hide behind the screen and you don't need to be a whistleblower to expose irregularities or issues. So you can hide behind that screen and the robot. So AI is designed with privacy and transparency as key considerations. AI is predictive, and its analytical power is very important in providing information for decision-making purposes. Big data can produce the trends and the patterns and relationships within the data that we need. So we don't have to worry about that. These tools and technologies are mechanisms to improve transparency and accountability through the algorithms. The dilemma, however, arises with the algorithms or data bias, leading to the concerns of fairness and the validity. And for that purpose, algorithmic audits will become a whole field of expertise on its own. And I'm actually very interested in that research. The Internet of Things, it takes physical places and things and connect them to the internet to reduce any human error or manage decision-making processes to improve results. Machine learning can assist in identifying fraud and other corruption by spotting unusual patterns that they collect from various data points. So machine learning was previously used data to create the answers to address the problem, but now it can use the data and the answers available that it was populated on the internet or the computer to discover the rules behind the problems through its predictive abilities. This can be extrapolated lessons learned from previous experiences and apply it to the future ones. The benefits of machine learning are, for example, decentralized intelligence and the trust for decision-making. So it will take over some of the decision-making responsibilities. Now, this slide shows you the abilities of ChatGPT, how we can learn and solve problems, for example, in the banking and finance system. It's just a summary of things that it already can do and that can be used. However, these AI answers are based on the information that's fed into the system. And as we know that history was written by those who won the war and the rest was destroyed. So what we put in the system is what we get out. AI is just a system that learns from the machine learning, from the available data to perform a task. So it should not really take over our tasks. It depends on us. It becomes more intelligent as the new data becomes available. And then the system makes predictions based on and limited to that existing data patterns. So the more correct and accurate information and data we put in the system, the better information we will get out. So the combination of AI and machine learning makes it a perfect tool for risk identification and assessment, where there's large historical data sets and recent activities. Think back to the COVID, the pandemic era where the risks were identified and anomalies, and it can be compared with recognizable patterns, and it could flag anomalies for real-time analysis for decision-making. So in the fifth industrial revolution, it will even go further into deep learning. So we must be prepared to be critical thinkers, to be involved in that process and in multi-level consciousness between the people and machines. For example, we are going into the Internet of Bodies, or Elon Musk's Neuralink. So the algorithms can be set to identify fraud, but the question then arises, who will decide upon those algorithms and the criteria? And who will maintain and monitor the process? So who will decide what is fed into that system? And will the decision-making process involving the algorithms be transparent? So if management is ultimately responsible for the prevention and detection of fraud, by implementing the controls and deciding about the algorithms, and often the fraud is perpetrated by management, then who will have control over the algorithms? So therefore, again, algorithmic audits are essential in the future. So blockchain technology is one of the biggest disruptors of the century, and the World Economic Forum believes that it is a powerful tool for tracking transactions that can reduce corruption, to increase trust and transparency, and to empower all stakeholders by reducing, again, the discretionary decision-making. So, but keep in mind that blockchain does not only relate to transactions, it can relate or involve the whole process in an organization. Blockchain links or transactions cannot be modified, and therefore records are protected from deletion and modification, and which is essential in this day and age. And at any point in the audit trail, it can be available, and it can be shared and transparent through distributed ledgers. So any changes in this chain or audit trail is then broadcasted to everyone in the network. Think of the human body again, and it must be approved by everyone in the network. It almost provides a perfect audit trail, and it allows for total transparency, but it will eliminate many of the audit functions that we previously performed, such as reconciliation, substantive testing, requesting bank confirmations or copies of ID documents of qualifications, calculations, or any analysis that we as assurance providers did. So through smart contracts within this chain, this blockchain, access to the original source documents are possible. So you as individual do not need to verify a copy of your ID. So everything is connected within the different departments within a government, your ID documents, proof of residence, your qualifications, your vehicle registration documents. So that will eliminate that need for verification of copies of documents or requesting verification from, for example, the bank. And that should also, in a perfect world, hopefully restrict the falsification of documents. So I'm going to show you quickly what blockchain entails.
Lisa, could you please check the sound? No sound for your info. Thank you.
It seems that the sound was not playing correctly, but I think you had the idea.
Elsa? Yeah, can I help?
you hear me?
Can I help? If you just share and under the, if you stop sharing and then sharing again on the.
I think I will continue. Otherwise, I
Okay.
will not get through all my slides. But I think everybody knows. Can you hear me now?
Yes, absolutely. And
Okay.
maybe we can share the video afterwards. We can put the link on
Yes.
on the page. Thanks, Elsa.
It will be available. Okay, so this is just briefly to show you the evolution from traditional auditing to continuous auditing, monitoring, and continuous assurance that we want to achieve. So we want to provide, instead of oversight and insight that we currently did or previously did, we want foresight and an oversight. Instead of hindsight information from historical data or like financial statements. Through real-time or continuous assurance, the management could be more proactive, and they could be pragmatic in identifying and assessing operational risks and any weaknesses or irregularities, and then they can give assurance, proper insurance on controls, compliance, and risk management, because it's real time and it is pragmatic. And then this also applies to all auditors and assurance providers. This is the difference between continuous monitoring and continuous auditing, just to remind you that monitoring is a management function and auditing is an only assurance function. And it's very important that this should be separated. Management cannot transfer their oversight responsibilities to the assurance providers or internal auditors and then just rely on what they have done. They cannot release their control. So continuous monitoring should stay intact and it should be separate from continuous auditing. The differences are depicted in this slide and the similarities are highlighted for your information. And both of them are based on the 3 lines of defense, as well as the 5 lines of assurance model of risk management, control and compliance. And the combination thereof should result in continuous assurance. But it's very important that the alignment of continuous monitoring and continuous auditing should be implemented effectively. So what are the factors that influence the effective use of continuous auditing or monitoring mechanisms? Normally, it's a limited effectiveness of the transparency and accountability mechanisms or initiatives from management with undesirable effects. Sometimes it's indecisiveness from management or dysfunctional structures. Continuous auditing is not actively or effectively being utilized. It's only utilized in certain sections or departments. The unavailability of data, even though there is already technology available, but it's not in place. So the infrastructures and technology is not yet in place, so then it cannot be used effectively. The data availability is sometimes a challenge in many organizations, and the processes and the people are disconnected. The one department doesn't know what the other department is doing. It's not aligned. And as we know how ineffective and inefficient that could be. Now, coordinating the assurance functions or the lines of defense through continuous assurance should result in an early notification of any gaps and weaknesses in risk management or controls. But we need to think differently about what we already know and what we already do, because everything is available. So it depends on us as insurance providers. Now, this is a first draft of my framework. So it attempts to use continuous monitoring on the one side, on the blue side, and the green side, the continuous auditing, to have an impact on producing more transparent information. And this should result in combined or continuous assurance mechanisms, as you can see here at the bottom, and transparency. It should result in integrated thinking, reporting, and accountability. This framework should be used by every department or function or project within an organization as a sort of a dashboard, and so that the governance structure for each of those departments are responsible for their department in terms of their strategy, their policies, their oversight functions, and disclosures. So by giving a bird's eye view of the organization, you have the oversight functions, the management functions within that process, and you have the assurance function. So everything is aligned, and your mission, vision, and strategy and objectives for each department should be set. The risk assessment should be done. And then you have the whole process starting from your strategic objectives, your business objectives, your resources, inputs, your processes, outputs, and outcomes and the impact that is normally not measured in most organizations to ensure a value creation. So if you look on the left-hand side, you will see that there should be continuous risk monitoring, continuous compliance monitoring, control monitoring, fraud and risk monitoring, performance monitoring, and then similarly on the right-hand side, the assurance side of that function. And it should work in alignment, and it should be integrated to give that integrated thinking and the transparency. So everything should be linked with each other, and that will result in accountability. So if we look into more detail into this framework, in terms of the assurance providers, based on the 3 lines of defense and the 5 lines of assurance. So this will form the basis of the continuous auditing framework. And I have extended it to the 6 lines of assurance, which I call on the banks and the regulators and the standard setting bodies to also be involved. And as we know, social media or the media nowadays expose many irregularities. And so they are actually very effective. And so through these 6 lines of assurance, a risk should be identified and opportunities by evaluating real-time data and implementing and monitoring controls and exercising the governance functions should be in combination. So consider the combined assurance framework in conjunction with a continuous assurance framework. So we will use AI strategies and data analytics and other technologies to have alignment between the continuous auditing and monitoring functions to use that effectively. So a practical and effective reporting framework will allow our oversight bodies or our leaders to reflect on their organization, and they will lead and demonstrate through integrative reporting and transparency and accountability on their activities. So as I've already said, that each department within an organization should have their own purpose, their mission and vision, and with their related values and goals, but that should be measured. And sometimes the outcome or the impact of the processes within a department organization is not measured effectively. And this will inform their strategy that will affect all operations in terms of people, processes, and systems. So the stakeholders need assurance that the goals are eventually achieved and that the strategy has been executed as it has been established, with consideration of all the financial and the ethical, social, and environmental requirements that is inherent to that. And the tone of the top and the ethical and individual conduct of oversight bodies create the overall corporate culture. So follow the leader. If the brain is not functioning properly, the other organs will also eventually fail. So consistent reporting on findings relating to all governance activities and achievements, as well as the failures, will then push the algorithms to alert or warn oversight bodies. And so similar to social media platforms, we can upvote and downvote performance and use it as a tool to expose improper behavior. So this is the transparency side of that will result in horizontal accountability, diagonal accountability between different departments from the oversight body to and between the assurance providers, as well as the vertical accountability that is important. Now, my objective with my framework in terms of a holistic approach is to conduct this continuous audit or monitoring process, combining all the different types of audits like risk-based, compliance, financial and operational audit to achieve economy, efficiency and effectiveness, and ultimately also equity and ethics. But we need a continuous early warning system to alert stakeholders if there's any non-compliance or irregularities. So the measurement should be continuously conducted between the actual input and actual output and planned output. So that should happen continuously, and that will be done by tools and technology. So the assurance providers can focus more on outcomes and the impact, doing a qualitative analysis of the effectiveness of that outcomes, as well as a quantitative measurement that they've mostly done up till now, but the qualitative side needs to be focused on. Now, continuously, risk and compliance should be considered in this process, not only focusing on financial measurement, but also the ethical aspects, risk and compliance. You all know the compliance requirements within an organization in terms of contracts, requirements, laws, regulations, standards. But when you conduct a assurance engagement, all standards and regulations and laws should be considered. And I find that sometimes if, for example, they conduct an operational audit, then they forget about some of the laws affecting that department or that function within an organization. So it's very important that assurance provider consider all laws, regulations, all standards, all terms, all contracts, and here smart contracts in blockchain will be very relevant. The problem that we will then, however, have is the ethical dilemma between what is ethical and legal. And I find that most people struggle with the legal but unethical decision. So in your own time, think of an example of something that is legal, but it's unethical. And it's a very fine line, and it's not clear to all people, and we as assurance providers will need to focus on that in the future, because that is not a decision that a robot or AI can make, and that will be very important in our assurance function. Now, getting back to the dashboard again, the information available to the oversight bodies or the governance body, they can, for example, access the risk management function there, and this could be updated. Consider all the risk within the organization. Sometimes we tend to forget about some of the external risks, some of the market risks, some of the strategic risks. So make sure that you update the risk assessment register continuously as new events happen, for example, pandemics. So in improving systems or improving governance, the first thing that is important is transparency. That is open meetings, financial statements, report disclosures, freedom of information, budgetary reviews, tender processes, all should be transparent. And radical transparency is a method where nearly all the decision-making is carried out publicly. All draft documents, all the arguments for or against a tender the decision about the decision-making process, how did they derive a decision, and all the final decisions should be made public and remain publicly archived. Think of the blockchain effect. So participation is there important through combined assurance. All the relevant stakeholders should participate, and it involves the inclusion or the collaboration of all of them, input from all the parties. So continuous monitoring and auditing require participation combined with accountability and transparency mechanisms to achieve improved systems and ultimately achieving improved governance. So the technological tools, for example, AI, machine learning, and blockchain could enhance that accountability and transparency link, whereas continuous monitoring and auditing will be involved in terms of participation. One of the most important things in achieving good governance is performance management, to measure the value creation in terms of inclusivity, equity, sustainability, and reliability. So the only way in achieving that is a result-based accountability strategy. So starting from key performance indicators in terms of a performance agreement, and then measuring the performance through real time and evidence-based performance management, that could then affect consequence management. So if you do not have the evidence of a person's performance, you cannot effect consequence management. And that is very essential in creating value in any organization and to ultimately achieve legitimacy and ethical leadership. If consequence management is lacking, then there's also a trust issue. So if that is not implemented, then ethical leadership is lacking. This just shows you how a dashboard in Excel can be used for these purposes, for evidence-based performance measurement. So it is achievable in any organization to implement an Excel spreadsheets to continuously monitor people's performance, and by linking it to, for example, a SharePoint, to improve governance. Again, this slide shows you the link between transparency, participation, and accountability. So information should be made publicly available to the relevant shareholders, and it should be timely, accessible, it should be reliable and relevant, it should be actionable. To enhance transparency and accountability, participation in the development of the standards and the data collection and analysis are required. If the standards have not been met and the results have not been achieved, then the concerned stakeholders can demand explanations and adequate consequences through the effective consequence management measures. Transparency requires to be informational. It should be participatory and actionable to ensure legitimacy. However, then on the other hand, we have secrecy and we have privacy and confidentiality requirements that are conflicting. And for that, there will need to be policies and procedures to regulate that. Transparency is the degree of openness and honesty, and it should be executed consistently to create trust. Deliberately revealing information proactively instead of waiting to be asked to produce reports enhances trust.
Couple of last minutes. Ilse?
Thank you. Thank you. So in achieving this changed behavior, it will be important to achieve ethical leadership and good governance and improved governance. So technology can be used, for example, in setting the standards and commitments through algorithms, AI, and machine learning, smart contracts. So that is set there and cannot be changed. So the data can be collected through the data analysis tools and techniques to effectively ensure consequence management. Accountability can only be achieved if there is answerability and enforceability. Now, answerability can be achieved through KPIs and record management and clear reporting lines. But if enforceability is not there through the laws and policies, performance agreements, and smart contracts, it's not achievable. So if there is not adequate reporting or disclosure, through transparent disclosure, that will fall away, and there will be no feedback to affect accountability, which will then also affect eventually capability, because if accountability is not addressed, then there's no improvement in performance. So that will also affect capability. This is just to show you the different formal accountability strategies originating from the source of control. So people think there's only the professional accountability or managerial accountability, but they forget about the personal, public, and political accountability that is also that should be considered simultaneously. So the moment that you lock your office door, you are still personally accountable to society or to the public, or in a political environment, also to society. I will skip a few slides. This is just to show you the conflicting concepts between confidentiality and privacy, data security, to achieve transparency and accountability. This is to show you how auditing in a digital age can be changed through automation, and how it can be done through robotic process automation, or this other software, continuous auditing technologies, or predictive analysis, or NLPs. So you can look at those slides again. Again, we can achieve this with a dashboard in conducting an audit. So when performing a continuous audit procedure, this is how it will look in theory. But now we can use the available technology tools and software through smart audits. We can achieve that if the data is available. So the important thing is to make sure that the data is available. And I will quickly skip through this. The impact should be measured as a final achievement of the assurance provider, because it's no use to just determine the condition and the effect and then make a recommendation about the finding. We must also measure the impact and continuously look at risk assessment, compliance, and the ethical consequences of a condition or of a situation. So what is the ethical implication thereof? I thank you for this opportunity, and I wanted to share a lot more information, but you will have my slides. And yes, thank you again for the opportunity.
Thank you so much.
Academy.
And all the participants, believe us, we are really deeply working on these topics. And you can see from Ilse's very well presentation. Thank you very much for sharing valuable information. And it's time to give the floor to Lindy. Thank you.
Thank you once again to Professor Boschkes, Ms. Ilse Morgan, and Professor Lawrence Erasmus. Especially thank you to the Good Governance Academy and the Research Forum. Please remember to visit these forum research pages as well, where you'll get more info on the researchers and their project. Thank you to our attendees. Until next time, goodbye.